So these are the expected outcomes at the end of this workshop. And please go ahead and take a moment to. And today we will be going through these sets of activities. First is again the introductions that we are doing here, and also the objectives of today's workshop, followed by we are connecting everything to our own experiences here. And then we really delve into what exactly this workshop is about. How do we become self-reflective administrators, as well as how do we enable our teachers to become self-reflective? Instead of us telling, oh, this is the area of the need, or this is the skill you develop, how do we make sure that we make them think for themselves? So the same way we have to say, what is that like we see in us? How do we become better at having that coaching dialogue so that we develop that reflection in the other person? And then we'll see some teacher videos where that's the most interesting part. Like when we all see, we calibrate in very different ways. So that actually brings up very interesting conversations.
So I just wanted to take this time to say, as you read through here, what we'd like you to do is to think back to a time where you had an observation conference, either with the administrator or you're an administrator, you planned for one. And maybe it didn't go as well as you wanted it to, or maybe it went another way than you thought it was going to go. So the questions are, what do you remember about that? And how did you react, or how did your administrator react? And how did you react, or what was it like for you? So if you can think back to a time where you had to sit down and talk about a lesson, talk about your improvement and growth, talk about your instruction, and maybe it didn't go the way you wanted it to. What do you remember about that time? It's just a reflective time. And then if we can just think about that, maybe share at your table and then share it out. And I have one for you as well.
So let's do a minute to think.
Which one is the other one?
Any brave souls first? Want to share out that experience of a time that, the conference summary or the situation didn't go as planned. Anybody first?
Well, I'm going to share a positive.
Pedro? Yes, sir.
I was in my fourth year as a new teacher, a new grade. I was observed, and the principal came in unannounced and did observations, and then after that he sent me the email with my notes, or he gave me somehow I got the information, and then he read it, and then he asked me 3 questions. One of them was, how do you think your observation went? And then the next question was, what do you think your strengths are, and what is your next plan? What is your plan, basically, for the future? So when I went in, he was expecting me, I guess, not to have read my summary. I said, how can you not? So I read my summary, and I went in with a plan already. So most of the talking was by me. He only said, okay, so you're going to do this, this, and this. And he was pretty much rephrasing what I had said. And so that was very good, at least for me, because then he listened to me, and he gave me kudos, and he said, okay, go for it. He did not say anything. I didn't even know whether I have I's or M's or anything. I just knew this is my plan. Now tell me how. No, he said, you did very well. That's all he did. I think it took like not even 30 minutes conversation, because I already had a plan for myself. But that was just me.
Thank you, sir, for sharing that. That was positive. You were already on the road to being a reflective educator. Next. Anybody else like to share? We need at least one more. Share out.
We'll do. I don't need a microphone, though. I've got it.
All right.
I just talked about a long time ago, one of my very first years, where I thought I was teaching 6th grade at the time, and I thought that it was horrible because the kids were doing what 6th graders do. And I went in, and she said, oh my gosh, it went fine. And I told her why I felt that it was not good. And she said, well, you need to understand something. When I go in to do an observation, I'm not looking at the kids. I'm looking at you and how you respond and how you react to the kids. And I was like, you know, because me, it was all, okay, you guys do what you're supposed to do. You guys be quiet. You listen. You get M&Ms afterwards. You know, and then when they didn't, you know, it was, and it was just, it's something that's carried with me in 25 years of teaching.
Sure.
It's not about necessarily the kids, because kids will be kids. It's about how we respond, how we react to the things that they're doing.
All right. Thank you for sharing that.
Any more share-outs?
I'd like to just share real briefly in my own experience. This was along the line of not being so positive, but we can grow from it. There was an educator that I knew I had to sit with and talk to about getting better. And so I kind of agonized over that over Saturday, over Sunday, because I knew the conversation would be one where it can be uncomfortable. And as soon as I sat down with that individual on that Monday, you know, right away, that educator got very defensive, tears rolling and all that. And so everything that I had planned didn't happen. And so I learned from that too, because I had to go into another mode, into asking that educator questions about, you know, how she feels about her professional skills and everything like that. And I became, I guess, a little bit more reflective that day. And so it taught me a lesson too. Sometimes you don't need to come in with this big plan, because it may not even go that way. And so sometimes, all the time, you need to come in as a better listener. You know what I mean? You can still have things that you want to talk about, but it's good to be a good listener. And so that educator can become more effective. And like you say, do a lot of the talking and not me doing all the talking. Yeah, I learned something that day.
I really think it's important as an administrator for myself to document as much information as I can on that evaluation. And it's almost, I can type pretty fast and write down as much as what the teacher is talking about, what the kids are saying. I even make a map of the desks where the teacher walked, which kids responded. I know what's on the board. So it's a complete picture of the room.
Sure.
So when I sit down with the teacher, I'm giving them feedback on not only the lesson, you know, the environment, did they call upon more girls than boys, more boys than girls? What was the pattern through the classroom? I'm trying to make it as complete as I can. Okay. Because it helps when it's like, you know, setting that up. My first couple of evaluations, you know, crash and burn.
We learn.
So you learn.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing.
Again, with one of my experiences, my mentor, this is my 5th year as a principal and 6 months in this district. I come from Los Angeles Unified. So my mentor always told me about empathetic leadership, and treat anyone that sits right across you, whether you're happy with the teaching or not, whether you think that is not the right teaching, to be treated and respected the same way that you want to. So the moment you do that, you kind of remove the judgment out of any conversation that you have. But again, having that conversation with anybody only comes with experience. And going back, and as an administrator, it is more important for an administrator to reflect, what is that I could have said, or how could I have phrased it better? So that there is, when the teacher walks out, or when I walk out of the conversation, I end up learning something and the teacher ends up learning something. So I immediately call my mentor right away and say, this is exactly what happened. What do you think? Should I have done it differently? Could I have done it better? So she doesn't give me the answer. Instead, she says, what do you think? So probably that is the conversation we have to have. Like, how do you think the lesson went? What do you think that could have been better? Do you think 100% of the students have learned in your classroom? So something to think about.
Nice perspective.
So let's go to the next slide now. Okay. Oh, you got it.
Go ahead.
So there is actually a packet in yours. Let me. So this one with the table here, And also, page 2, there's just short paragraphs here. So if you can go ahead and start numbering from 1 through 4, since we are only, 6, probably 2 will be in one group. So starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and probably I'll join you 3 and 4. Okay, so if you are 1, make sure you do this, read through this table, and also the one associated with the first one, the unaware stage. This is the first, okay, the table, the first segment of the table, and this one, first paragraph. And if you're number 2, the second segment of the table and a second paragraph. And if you are number 3, the third segment and the third paragraph. And if you're 4, the last one. So this is the strategy we are going to use for this. This is called the home expert group strategy. So each one of you in your group has read one paragraph, right, concerning each one of those topics. So what we are going to do, we not only, now we have digested what it is by ourselves, but again, you all know as teachers and administrators, only when we try talking about it, it enhances the understanding of what it is. And again, hearing from different perspectives. So that's what we are going to do now. So all the ones, if you can come together and use this one. All the ones.
Yeah, so build rapport, and I would also say like facilitate opportunities to exchange ideas. Yeah, so you need that rapport to exchange ideas.
Build rapport.
Yeah. And the other one was facilitate opportunities to.
Hopefully we have talked about, like if it's a bigger group, this works even more beautifully, but unfortunately we have, but this is also a very intimate setting. So your understanding about the stage that you read probably is a little bit more than when you read it by yourself, because you talked and discussed with a partner. So now what I want you to do is go back to your group and talk about that stage. So now, if you have read the unaware stage, you would share your knowledge with the others in the group. That is number 2s, number 3s, and 4s. And then if you are then, each one will get a minute to talk and share your expertise on that particular stage. And then the second one will share their expertise on that stage. So we build collective understanding of all the 4 stages. Good? Good. Thank you.
And it was interesting because with here you said that they were not aware. Right. In the conscious stage, they are aware of what they should be doing, and they're making conscious choices to work not necessarily for what works for them, not necessarily what works best for the kids. So they're very heavy into convenience, short-term planning because they want, whatever is working for them, routines, because the routines are easy. And there's a definite lack of motivation because, again, motivation requires work. And so there's a lack of motivation on their part to make these changes that need to be made. As far as a coaching aspect, I think the biggest thing that you mentioned was the fact that if we don't have a foundation of trust between coaches, administrators, and teachers, nobody goes anywhere. Nobody grows, nothing happens. So I think that that's probably one of the biggest foundations of everything in here is the fact that we have to be building trust all the time between our administrators, coaches, and our teaching staff. Also, in order to move someone from this stage, set small short-term goals that are easily accomplishable. Is that a word? Accomplishable? Easily accomplished. and then provide the support, motivation, and the support and motivation that they need in order to succeed with these small goals. And then as they're succeeding, then their self-confidence is going to improve. It follows this trajectory, hopefully, that it's moving up as things are moving in a positive manner, then their teaching is starting to improve.
Okay, so how about is any ahas and share outs, quick comments or two from each group, and then we will move on to the next. Marcus, yours is next. Any share outs? We did talk a lot, that we know. Yeah.
One thing that's common between all of the levels in the coaching strategies is trust. You have to have trust. You have to have that rapport, or else you won't be able to coach. You can't grow. You won't see the progress.
Absolutely. Anything from this group?
This is the same thing. To me, that's the big overriding umbrella of this whole evaluation system, is that if we don't have trust between administrators and teachers, or the evaluators and teachers, then we're never going to get out of and away from the gotcha kind of evaluation to look at evaluation for what our district wants it to be, and that is a tool for teacher growth.
So that brings us to this document that you guys have. The whole purpose of actually reformatting the whole thing is exactly what you're talking about. We are looking at this as a growth model instead of saying, okay, this is, if it is this, then this. So there is no clear, refined process. And how many of you feel like you agree with the point that on a certain specific thing, a teacher may be in this stage, and in some, the teacher may be in an action stage. There are several dimensions to teaching. So it is also not very possible to say that, okay, this teacher clearly falls into this category. So that's one thing we have to think about. And now, knowing that there are 4 different stages, broadly classified, look at the new evaluation that has been done with the SBTA and the district together. And how many of you were part of that? Anybody? So take a look at this and see the stages here and the similarities. Again, one thing I do want to make sure is you look at it, you walk into a classroom once, and you say, this is the teacher, I'm going to coach this, immediately my evaluation becomes this. So this evaluation is something totally final. So you do several of these observations, several conversations with the teachers, and then when it comes to the final evaluation, that's when the rating happens. So there's a lot of process that goes before a rating is given. So there is responsibility for the administrators as well as responsibility for the teachers to get this here. And again, some of the intentions, feel free to share with us if we are dialoguing the same aspect that was shared in the meeting there. So take a look at this and take a look at these 4 stages. Do you see a match between the stages? Which stage falls into which category? Knowing very well that these are broad categories. Any thoughts, any connections that you see between the stages, and can anyone share out?
Well, I did the first stage, which was the unaware stage, and I feel that pretty much it's either they're going to fall under unsatisfactory because they don't have the knowledge to connect, they don't have the knowledge of instructional strategies, so it's either going to be unsatisfactory or partially meets standards, right? That's what I would think.
Thank you. Is there any other?
It's going to move on up with each of the stages.
So conscious would
What about, yeah, what
broadly connect with what?
about the lazy?
The conscious stage?
That was the second one.
I think that would probably be partially meets.
Partially, maybe meeting in some.
Yeah.
Maybe meeting in some areas,
Maybe in
yeah.
some areas.
See, that is why there's no
Some
clear
areas,
delineation.
No.
So that's okay not to have that. And action stage,
Meets.
meet standards, probably,
Mhm,
right?
meets and
Meet standards, but there's still
possibly
room to grow.
exceeds.
And refinement
Innovatively implement.
could be the exceed standards, and again, that there are several levels in that too. So thank you. With that,
One of the things that I noticed right away is that this new document, they're the California standards for the teaching profession, like engaging and supporting all students, understanding and planning lesson design, assessment. However, it's broken down now to like 1.2, 2.1. So it's a little bit more broad now. And so one of the things that Sudha talked about earlier is making sure that administrators are in the classrooms more often to get a bigger picture, not just go in for one evaluation, oh, now you're unsatisfactory, and now you are, you need to improve. But going in classrooms over time, giving a feedback, helping that educator to be reflective, and then taking a look at where are you right now, you know, based on what we've seen over the past few, let's say, weeks or months. And then that's a clearer picture so we can help move that educator forward. And so that's going to be very critical, that administrators be in classrooms more often. Even though our days are very long and crazy, we have to be in classrooms more often, giving that reflective feedback, helping educators say, okay, this is where I am, and these are the growth areas of growth for me. So that's very important. But you're going to get a chance right now to practice some of that. This is kind of like our last activity of the evening. But it's very interesting, because what's going to happen is you're going to get a chance to see an educator in action. And you're going to be able to take a look at or think about the different stages, the action stage, the conscious stage, the refinement stage, the unaware stage, and kind of take a look at where you think that educator falls. But here's the kicker right here. You have to work with someone, because one of you will choose to be the administrator. That's the purple template, or whatever color this is. What color is it? Fuchsia? Lavender, sorry. All right, lavender, the lavender color. Same color as your shirt. All right. And then there's the other one where you are the educator who's presenting or participating in that lesson. And these are reflective templates. If you are the educator, when you're looking at this, you are kind of critiquing and reflecting on your own practices. You're like, hey, this is the stage I'm in. This should be my area of focus, whether it be active engagement, whether it be checking for understanding, whatever it is. As a reflective practitioner, these are the questions I need to ask myself. We're not asking you to fill out a book or put down 5 things. We're just asking you to jot down notes to be a reflective educator. And then strategies that you might use to address your own gaps. So whoever's going to be the educator, when you're watching that video, that's you up there. So you're kind of reflecting on your own practice. And whoever's going to be the administrator, your job is to to identify the stage that you believe that educator is working in. An area of growth that you identify, but you're not going to go in and just say, these are the areas that you need to grow in, this is what I want you to do. It would be your job to kind of create reflective questions that you might ask that educator. Is there one that you can come up with, or maybe 2? And then are there any reflective strategies that you might be able to use with that educator that we talked about who's in that particular stage? So you have the guide that we read through earlier, and you have your own experiences. So this is what I'll need from you. I need for everybody to have a partner. I think, Pedro, you may have to go over there. Or you can come over here, whatever one. Okay. And you can also use the new SBTA, the new California Standards for the Teaching Profession evaluation, to help guide you as well. So when we're done with the video and you have completed your little reflective, you will have a conversation with the person next to you based on your role. And there's no right or wrong today. It's just talking. And what's going to be interesting is to see how we in this room may have differences of opinion on where educators lie. And so it's a good practice to start calibrating where we think teachers are with their instructional practices or their instructional skills. So if you can choose right now who you're going to be, the administrator or educator. You have the volume.
Put that in your spirals. Go ahead and get your markers out just like normal. Get your spirals out, and if you can get out your glue and glue that white piece of paper that I gave you just now coming in the door, you can glue that in. That would be fabulous. There you go.
All right, that's all we have enough time for. So, you know, you got a snapshot of her instructional practices in the classroom. And that's what administrators do. We go in and we take a look at how educators are effectively teaching. And so, but you only had 7 minutes or so. And so I'll give you 2 more minutes to jot down some of your reflective either questions, thoughts before you have the conversation with your administrator or educator as you go in with your own reflective thoughts. Give you a couple minutes for that.
So reflective questions that I might ask this teacher. One, what are the strengths of this lesson? I have to start off positive. Were you satisfied with the amount of student participation? How might you improve this lesson? How might you engage those students with their hands down? You know, so those are questions that I might ask.
Sorry if that wasn't enough time. If you can just begin to wrap those conversations up. What we'd like to do is go to the administrators first, then the classroom teacher. We just want to know where did you identify, what stage did you identify yourself or the educator at, and why? And then we'll jot some of those down, just to look at the calibration in here and what we thought about that lesson. So you got to use this, sorry.
I worked with Roberta, and basically we both selected the action. Roberta also selected the refinement stage. As for the teacher side, what I noticed was technology issues. So there could have been a lot of material on that overhead that she wanted to display, but she couldn't get it turned back on. So some of that was lost, and she tried to overcome it by writing on the board, which is great. And then the other thing I noticed, not walking around the whole classroom and engaging all students, tended to walk from whiteboard to projector, back to whiteboard, back to projector. So she had no idea of what the kids were doing in the back. And basically what I said as reflective, how can I build on experience and not have technology issues, which means I need to understand that equipment before I use it with kids. And how do I engage and support all students in learning would be the big question if I'm being checked on that. And what I came up with is, for technology, just make sure I understand how to use it. The second one is something simple. Just get a rubber stamp, and as I'm instructing, walk around the class and stamp the pages, let the kids see me do that, and if somebody's having a problem, hey, you didn't get this one, so come on, before I come back, I want to see you get this one done. And then maybe pick a different color next time so they know I'm on top of that, and I know I'm hitting all those kids in class.
And which stage did you all have her in? Action.
Well, action,
Did you want to add to that?
I was kind of in between, but yeah.
Action
Okay.
and refinement, but action.
Okay.
I was in between, and my only, I don't know, because you just said just administrators this time? No. Oh, okay. My only concern, I thought she did an excellent job, and my only concern was, again, getting those students engaged that had their hands down. Because you had a lot of the same ones with their hands up, and then there were a few in there, you know, that teacher eye. I said, oh, that student hasn't raised their hand at all. So, you know, like, so anyways, but she was doing an excellent job, I thought. So, you know, we had to pick something to improve upon, so there you go.
The action stage. Yes.
I just want to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Hensley said. I'm sorry, I know this is so exotic. The technology piece that he's mentioning, that tends to happen quite a bit for us. If we go in the classroom and that happens, that happens. That's why it's so critical as administrators that we get in often, because she might be a rock star with technology, but there's nothing you can do if some fuse is blown in the inside and something funky just happened on this particular day, because that happens. So that's why it's critical that we're in there often, so we'll know if this is something that's totally out of the ordinary for that teacher.
Thank you. Over here, the identified stage and why, and any other points about this educator.
Okay, I served as the administrator, and the stage of the teacher I felt also, as she did, kind of mixed between refinement and action. I kind of first started as refinement, but then as I started to fill out the form and I had to indicate areas of growth, I thought, well, maybe it's more action. So it's kind of between the two. And funny, but same area for growth was, well, for me, was number one was when she was at the door and the children were walking in, she immediately just handed the paper and said, glue this on your, glue this and glue this, without actually greeting the children first. So I thought maybe it might be a good thing if she would at least acknowledge the children by saying good morning, good afternoon, something before she started saying, yeah, glue this. And the other was agreed with this lady as well in terms of when she was asking the questions, the children were raising their hand. Excuse me for using the word children, I'm preschool. I know it's students. Students were raising their hand, but not all of them were raising their hand. So I thought maybe she needs to work on providing additional time for them to respond to the question.
Okay. Okay, so I was the teacher, and I put her in the action stage as well. Okay. But from my point of view, what I noticed was that for the kids who didn't understand it, I was thinking she should have shown more work as the kids were telling her how they solved the problem. I thought she should have been writing it down so that the visual learners could have seen how it was done, because I'm visual and if it had been anything but 200, I would have been lost, or 100.
Great observation. Thank you all for your perspectives. There's some commonalities here.
I was a teacher, and I thought on the same line as she did that I wanted to have more participation from all the students at once. So as I reflected, as I was delivering this lesson, I reflected that maybe for the next time, I present the information, small chunk. She said, this is what I want you to do. Now in groups, you guys are going to answer the questions, and now we'll pick one of your group to give me an answer. So you will not know which one I'm going to be called, but you will not. So randomly call, and at the same time as a grouping, working together. So that way everybody has something on the paper, and you will, like he said, you go around checking to make sure everybody's is done.
Thank you, educator.
And then I was the administrator, and I put her at action and refinement. But I also, one of the things that my first response was, can you even tell? On a lesson that's on a videotape where in 7 minutes. But the area of growth that I looked at was again, like everyone else noticed, was the student engagement. And there were students that were not participating. And my reflective question would have been, what kind of strategies could you use that would increase the student engagement? Or she did use some. She used the thumbs up. She did tell one student to ask a neighbor. But if you can get all the kids participating, maybe a turn to your partner, or the forbidden think, pair, share. But I also liked the fact that when the kids offered up their answer, she was asking them how to, or to explain what their thinking was. So I think she did a really good job.
And so some of the things we saw, and I heard that she would fall somewhere around that action stage. Not terrible, but there's some things that she can work on to improve her craft. But how do we allow her to come up with some of those things without us just going in and saying, you need to work on student engagement, you need to work on think, pair, share, you know what I mean, and all these things. So that's the question. How do we get our educators to be more reflective? It's through those open-ended questions. It's through trying to give them more reflective feedback and allow them to reflect on their own instructional practices, and not just saying that, hey, I'm coming in next time, I need to see A, B, C, and D. And if I don't see A, B, C, and D, then we'll start talking about going down here to the
Partially meets up.
yeah, partially meets. There's a new one. So partially meets, or even the one that comes before that, or the one that comes after that. Unsat. And so I thought that was a good exercise as far as taking a look at the stage of an educator. That has to be done over time as well. Like you said, it can't just be a snapshot. We have to be in classrooms and giving those educators reflective feedback. We're going to start wrapping up here, but I wanted to turn it over. I don't know.
Come on, Dion.
Yeah, turn it over to kind of wrap it up for us, just to kind of look at what we've done and connect it to the document, the new document that's going to be coming out. I believe we're going into that next year, so it's good for us just to reflect on that before we get out of here. And you all have done wonderful today with 6 people here, so wanted to thank you for your participation.
Thank you. As the final slide shows here, the thing that we want to really instill in everyone is that effective feedback really is reflective feedback. Even someone that's in that refinement stage, everyone has areas that they can improve in. So it's getting the educator to think about their practice, hone in on their craft, and a lot of times, which I found people that are outstanding, meets or exceeds, refinement, they're harder on themselves than we ever would have been. So just getting people to really think about what they're doing, how I can grow and improve, what I'm doing that may be stellar, that I can coach and mentor others. So even tying all those pieces in together, getting our refinement stage teachers to help our unaware teachers, but working together to get better overall. You participated on the JET team? Is that what you shared? Okay. So is everyone familiar with how this document came to be? So I have people ask me that as well, because it's quite different from what we've been used to. Okay. I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but I think it's important that everybody knows how this document really came to be. Some said it's from SIG and learning, but I know, exactly. So that's why we want to dispel the myth.
Yeah, those are naughty letters. But basically, we did look at the evaluation that was used with the SIG program. That some of us worked that very, very successfully. Some of the schools didn't have real positive experiences. We went to the CSTPs and went heavily off of the BITSA rubric on how we were going to rate them. We talked a lot about those silly titles at the top. Lot of dialogue about those titles and what were we going to call a teacher that was not performing, whether we were going to soften it a little bit or whether we were just going to call it like it was. But we met as a team of administrators and SBTA people, and I have to say that other than being on the bargaining team, it was one of the most rewarding committees that I've been on, because there was so much collegiality and just cooperation as we worked together on these documents. We met for days last year, spent hours and hours on developing this whole system, and we continue to meet to work on the forms and these trainings. Did that cover it? It's if used in the spirit that our district wants it to be used in, and that SBTA leadership wants it to be used in, this is going to be an incredibly powerful tool for teacher growth. And everybody will benefit when the teachers grow. The kids are going to benefit, the teachers themselves are going to benefit, and overall our district is going to benefit. I sound like a commercial. I mean, we're going to have our problems with it, we know that. But this is a really good tool for us to be moving towards as we progress in teacher training and growth.
Thank you. And with that, we are going to close today. We appreciate you being here. If you would please take some time to fill out your Delta plus minus response cards to give us some feedback. So we do have 2 more of these to present, and we want to take your feedback in, make sure we're getting better.